All right, the lady says it's recording. Here we are on The Blind Man in Black. I'm Brian Maxfield Snyder. Thank you for watching on YouTube and listening on Apple Podcast. By the way, if you like my wife and I being exhausting, go to the Exhausting Snyders on TikTok. And we are soon going to have a new podcast called The Exhausting Snyders. So keep an eye and an ear out for that.
And they are exhausting. Woo-wee.
Yes. And thank you for talking. My co-host for this one is my brother, a writer, and he's also a program manager for Society for the Blind, Shane Snyder. Thank you for co-hosting.
I'm a writer?
Yeah, you are.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, thanks for letting me know.
Very talented, by the way.
Good to know about myself.
I've read his stories. I've tried to get him to write more, but
he's lived some of my stories.
Shane, you and I have known each other for how long? 20 some plus years.
I'll do the math while Brian continues with the introduction.
Okay. So I'm very excited because we have a very special guest. He has been a retailer for 58 years. He's a dear friend of ours, Kleon LeFever. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Nice to be here with you both.
Yeah, this is great. So we started this whole thing off by Kleon, you saying that fucking beard to Shane. What was that about? What's with why don't you like his beard?
Well, when I first saw his beard, it was a shock. I mean, this is somebody I knew who was practically a baby when I met him.
Where did you both meet?
Do you want to tell him? Or you want me to tell him?
No, well, you go and I'll chime in.
Okay, I'll make up stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, we have to allow for some early dementia here. Well, not even early, just age appropriate dementia.
We met, I was working at Nordstrom at the time, and we had a good mutual friend named Matt Callahan who worked with us. And Matt, he was our stock person at the time. And I don't know whether we ever got introduced in the store, but we did end up going to a dinner party at Matt's house, and Shane and Darren were roommates with Matt, and we had this lovely dinner. There were several of us from the department, and I believe you came in late. You didn't actually join us for dinner that night. You came in later. And of course, Shane being Shane and me being me, we hit it off right away. And we ended up talking about your grandma, Gam.
Yeah, that's so funny because when you said fucking beard, that was my first thought was Gammy. So going, oh, that ugly beard.
Yeah, we had a hoot that night talking about, I'll never forget it too. You and I laying on the floor in the living room. You probably don't remember that, but we were kind of stretched.
I do.
Stretched out, and you were talking about her and the pudding. You remember the pudding?
Yeah. She used to make
tapioca pudding.
Well, she liked all kinds of pudding. Tapioca.
Yeah. We laughed and laughed and laughed. It was
butterscotch.
Fun. Butterscotch. Yeah, I think it was butterscotch.
Probably though. We were talking about caramel pudding.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think that was the first time we really, kind of connected in any way. And then you had other parties at the other house. There were a couple of houses that you lived in Oakland, or was it Berkeley? No, it was Oakland.
Well, we had, there were 3 iterations of what we called Casa del Singles back in those days. Darren, Matt, and I being the singles. And the first house was the one in the Diamond District of East Oakland in the flats. And then we moved up the hill to the second house, which was right at the top of the hill below the Mormon temple. And I said 3, didn't I? There were only 2.
So you how long have you known each other? Did you say how many years, Shane?
Well, you know, Kleon was saying, I don't remember. I feel like we might have first met at one of the dinner parties, although I do remember going into the store and seeing Kleon. And
yeah, I think Matt might have introduced us in the store at one time. You came by for some reason.
Yeah, I think
and
so.
And then the dinner parties happened after.
Yeah. I mean, there were a lot of parties, dinner parties, and then big blowout bashes. And Kleon attended a number of those, I think, at both houses, right?
Well, I only remember 2 houses. I remember the house that had the hot tub in the back.
That was the one on the hill.
And then I remember the one where you had all the Christmas decorations, and I brought my friend Paul.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Paul Perfilio. Yeah.
Paul Perfilio. Yeah.
That was, yeah, I don't think that was.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't think that was the first dinner party that you came to at the house, but that,
I think it was
that
the
was
last.
No, because that dinner party, the way things transpired at that dinner party, you and I probably didn't even interact that much. But
it's because you were occupied.
Remember, this is a kid-friendly program, so
it's actually not. So you can say whatever you want.
Well, what I remember, I feel like I remember us talking on the carpet by the fireplace, just both kind of laying on the Persian rug, and everybody was gathered around having a little conversation. I feel like that was up on the hill. That was up.
It was. It was.
Yeah. So that
and
was.
I think that was the first time.
No, because we lived in the house. We lived in the house. The Mediterranean style house in the Diamond District. That was the first house. The house up on the hill with the hot tub. Oh yeah, sure? that I'm quite sure about. Yeah, that
I can pinpoint the date for you. I think the store opened. The store opened in 1989. The Nordstrom store. Matt did not work. He did not work there very long. So it was early 90s when you and I met.
Okay, so that helps me because I moved to Berkeley in 1989, right after I graduated from college. I got a job via the executive Hilltop Mall, Macy's. Yeah, I had went through the executive training program, and I was a manager at Hilltop Mall, Hilltop we called it, and I had that little basement apartment in the Berkeley Hills, and I moved out of that apartment.
That little tiny place?
Well, no, that was another one. That was the one that was that little place that you're thinking of, the real tiny basement apartment. I lived in 2 basement apartments in Berkeley. The first one you never saw because I didn't know you then.
Yeah.
But I was living in that apartment when I met Matt and started to hang out with him and Darren sometimes at that house. And then at the time, they had a roommate named Janine, who was also one of your coworkers at Nordstrom.
Really? Janine?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And they couldn't stand her. They couldn't wait to get her out of the house. So when they were finally able to get her out, they invited me to come live with them at that house. And that would have been sometime between yeah. More is coming back. Anyway, it was probably sometime between May and September
And
of 1990. So 1990 plus, we're talking 90, 2000, 2010. Are we talking 32 years, Kleon? Has it been that long? 32 years.
yeah. And I haven't changed a bit. And you have that beard,
Which you're
And-
very happy about.
that white beard.
Yeah.
So Cleon, let's talk about how everything began. Let's start with the genesis of Cleon.
Well, my mother and father got together one night. What do you mean the genesis? How I came out here?
Where are you from?
Oh, good Lord. You want to go that far back?
Oh yeah.
Okay, born in Illinois, Champaign, Illinois. My
Mhm.
dad was a student at University of Illinois. Moved to, and my father's family is all in Southern Illinois in a small little town called Olney. My mother and father were high school sweethearts. And then after the war, he went back to school and got his law degree. And then we ended up moving to, New York, that has a lot of, what's up in upper state New York?
You
I
mean
can't
like
think of it.
like Albany or
No.
Syracuse,
No,
Roch-
further.
Rochester?
Rochester,
No, even further.
Buffalo.
Yeah, Buffalo. Thank you. Couldn't remember the name.
We
But
finally
you
got
know,
there.
I was barely born. I mean, I'd only been, I wasn't even a year old, and we moved to Buffalo. Then we moved. As being a corporate lawyer, my father moved around. He worked for Standard Oil of New Jersey, and we moved to Elizabeth, where my two sisters were born.
So
we
he
lived
worked
in
for Rockefeller.
Yeah, well, only for a short time.
Mhm.
And then when I was 8, we moved to Indiana, northern Indiana, a little town called Elkhart. Elkhart is next door to South Bend, which is Notre Dame.
I thought you were going to say Gary, Indiana.
No, it's far from, well, it's 90 miles from Chicago, so it's about 60 miles from Gary, but all right at the Michigan line. Shane's probably heard all this crap before.
Well,
But not
actually-
everybody on YouTube has.
I hope not.
Yeah, don't worry about me. And in fact, these are some new details to me. So please
Oh.
continue.
So my brother was born in Elkhart, and we lived there until I was 16. And then our family, my dad worked for Miles Laboratories, which made Alka-Seltzer and one-a-day vitamins. He was a patent attorney, a chemical patent attorney. So then we had an opportunity to either move to California or move to New York State. And the family voted to move to New York. So we all moved to New York in, I think, 64. And we lived in a very nice town called Bedford Village. Bedford Village is upper Westchester County near the Connecticut state line. Very famous now as the home of Martha Stewart. She wasn't around at that time. And then he worked for General Foods, makers of Jell-O and Kool-Aid and
Gammy's favorite.
Maxwell House Coffee. And then I went to high school there for a couple of years, and then I went to a small liberal arts college in Illinois called Monmouth, which is 180 miles southwest of Chicago. And I went there for a couple of years until I transferred to NYU in Greenwich Village. And I finished my Bachelor of Science degree in education, living in Greenwich Village on the West Village for several years.
Before we get into that too much, what was your childhood like? Was it fun? Was there an expectation to become a lawyer or?
Oh, no, no, no. My parents didn't push me, unfortunately, didn't push me on anything. They were just loving, supporting parents. So I had a pretty mild upbringing, no, trauma or anything like that. It was kind of hard a little bit to move around the 2 or 3 times that we did.
Mm-hmm.
But it also gave me, I think, a more balanced approach to what people are like. I mean, the only place that I haven't lived is the South. So, I think I have a pretty good understanding of what people are like in different parts of the United States.
No, was your brother an attorney, did you say?
No.
Okay.
No, my brother, no, I was the only one that went to college.
Mhm.
In my family. My sister went to college my older sister, she's 2 years younger than I am, and she went to college until she found a husband.
Mhm.
And now they've been married 50 years and live in
Wow.
San Antonio.
Wow. So what was your dream? What did you want to do when you grew up?
Oh, I've never grown up. Sorry.
I can vouch for that.
No. Oh, shut up. No, I never had, I had my demons, and so I was really just I went from one thing to another. My first job was in retail when I was 16, and I don't think I ever left.
Mhm.
I went to college. I worked in a gift store on 8th Street in the East Village, a really nice gift store. And I worked there all through my remaining 2.5 years of college. And then I ended up.
The city was different back then. It was,
Oh, yeah,
high.
totally different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you talk
I had-
about what that was like?
It was fun. I mean, it was the West Village in the 70s. We did every drug that was known to man.
Did you meet like David Bowie and?
There was no David Bowie at that time, at least not famous. No,
Well, I'm in the 70s. I'm thinking because I was just reading a book about he used to hang out at Castro Rising Star, and in the late.
And
70s.
I never did. Yeah, but this was early 70s. I
Okay.
graduated in 72.
Mhm.
And I actually left New York not too much long after that, after I graduated. There was no point for my parents to go to graduation because it was 40,000 students or something like that. It was at Madison Square Garden. They wouldn't have been able to see anything. And I also, because I was a transfer, I didn't graduate in June. I graduated in January. So unfortunately, my parents didn't get to see me walk across the stage in my cap and gown. I didn't do any of that stuff.
For some reason, I have a memory that you did theater during that period, didn't you?
Well, that was my major. It was actually, so when I was at Monmouth College, I knew I wanted to leave. It was a kind of a cold existence in Illinois. Some aspects of it I liked, but I was a member of Crimson Mask. That was the theater group. And the first thing I did when I was at Monmouth was I tried out for because I did high school plays. Our Town, I was the doctor, and a bunch of other things. And I got quite a lot of recognition from doing theater in high school. So I went to Monmouth College and I did theater there. And the first thing I did was a play called The Mad Woman of Chaillot, which is a French play. And I was the street juggler, and I had to learn how to juggle balls on stage. Well, I don't juggle. I had to learn though. So I did theater at Monmouth for, I did a number of different plays. And so I thought, oh, I'll be an actor. So I applied for the School of the Arts in New York City at NYU, which is a world famous school of theater.
I know, actually, my one of my professors at UCLA, Mel Shapiro, started that program, the Tisch.
Yeah, you would probably know, from your own experience. So anyway, that's what I applied. It's a horrible experience. I went to Chicago for an audition, and my drama coach coached me on my scenes that I was just terrible, which is why I'm not an actor today. I was awful. Anyway, he was very supportive, and I went and tried out for these for the New York School of Dramatic Arts and did not get in. Of course, they only take the cream of the cream. I mean, if you looked at their who's who, it's quite famous. But they did suggest that I go into the School of Education theater department, which is what I did, which is why I have a degree in speech and educational theater. But when I was at NYU, I did theater, and I have a review from Variety. So, and I had, some limited success, not enough to make it a full-time career, but it was fun.
Did you want to do it? Did you have the drive to do it?
No, I didn't have the drive. I knew I was terrible. I did a play. These are so strange, these memories. So I did The Hobbit. I was a Biffer in The Hobbit. I can't remember everything that I did. I did a musical called Celebration, which was written by the guys who wrote Fantastics, which was still running on off-Broadway. I did a production at Rikers Island.
Oh, the prison.
I was a fill-in. They did a play called Come Back Little Sheba. And one of the minor characters, these were all my friends that I worked with at school. They were doing this production, and they wanted me to be in it, but I had no desire to be in it. And but one of the actors who had a minor role, he backed out at the last minute, and he said, "We have to have you do this. We go on tomorrow night," and this guy backed out. So they roped me into doing it. I had one line, which I flubbed. But I had no staging. I had no idea where I was going or what I was doing. It was very interesting as an experience.
So it was in the prison?
It was in the prison. Oh yeah, we had to go through the whole rigmarole. And my friend who played the female lead, the minute she walked on stage, the audience went berserk, And anyway, that was a night to remember. We did all the dressing in the men's room of this they had a little theater set up, where they obviously did entertainment for the prisoners. And all their artwork was stored in this men's room, because apparently it was a painting class during the day. And there were these really bizarre paintings, quite good actually, some of them, but they were all done by the inmates in the prison. So anyway, it was a strange experience.
Was there anything that stood out in any of those paintings that you remember to this day?
Oh, absolutely. I'll never forget. It was a painting of an elephant, not life size, but a large rendition of an elephant that had been chained, and he had broken out of his chain, and his trunk was raised and his mouth was open and his foot was raised and the chain was flapping around. It was very, very dramatic as a painting. And I mean, like I said, really quite good. I mean, very, very professional. So that was a night to remember. Yeah, it was fun. the the major production that I was in was a play called, oh, this is, I don't know if I should say this, A Taste of Honey. Again, this was an English play. I don't know, remember the, I want to, Terrence somebody, I think was the
Terrence
author.
McNally?
No, he was English. It wasn't Terrence McNally. He was
Terrence
not
Stamp?
English. No, that's an actor.
Well, what do I know?
I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, so this, you know, the theater department did different things. We had the head of the department, and they did most of the productions and things like that. And of course, we all auditioned. But this was the spring of 71, I believe. And they had, for the spring production, they were doing A Taste of Honey. Taste of Honey is about an English girl who becomes pregnant by her Black lover. But she can't have this baby because of her mother. So she enrolls her gay best friend to kind of take care of her and the baby when it's born. They're kind of like roommates. So we had a professional Broadway director named Robert Greenberg. Oh God, I hope I can say this out loud. Direct this musical, and he held auditions, and I auditioned, and I got the part. And I wasn't out at the time in my college group. And I was like very nervous about doing this gay character on the stage, but I did. And I got reviewed. And then Kent State happened. Do you know what Kent State is?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So this was in May, and Kent State was, you know, the violent protest against the war in Vietnam. So we performed one weekend. The next weekend, in between the weekends, was Kent State. And of course, the university shut everything down. So we only did one, maybe two performances. And so that was my big break.
Now, how did you feel about your performance, though?
Ugh, I was terrible. I was a terrible actor. It was like so embarrassing. I mean,
well, the only reason I
can't
asked, because
even-
it seemed like, because you were saying you weren't out at the time,
yeah.
but maybe that allowed, did that make you feel
No,
like a sense of
no.
freedom?
No, not at all.
Oh, okay.
I was nervous the entire time. I think after a while, maybe I got a little bit looser,
Mhm.
but yeah, I was still in the closet. You know, I slept with every girl in my department. So let me put it that way. And then I
Hey,
started sleeping
Shane,
with the
feel free to
guys.
interject at any time.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm still processing Kleon
Well, you've heard all
LeFever
this.
saying, no, I have not. I have not. I not
Shane,
not
all
in-
the years we've known each other, I haven't told you all this crap before.
well, not in such detail, not in not in chronological order, and not in context.
Okay.
And I've certainly never until this moment heard you utter, "I slept with every woman in my department." That's yeah. That's
Well, not every woman, but at least 3 of them.
So what happened after A Taste of Honey?
I don't think too much happened after that, because that was the end of the school year, and then I graduated.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that was kind of like the curtain call. I mean, I was working at the time. I was working at this gift shop. I had decided, you know, after school finished, that I was going to go to California.
Why did you want to go to California?
I wanted to be an actor. No, I don't know. I just thought, I decided I would move back to my mother and father's hometown, live with my aunt and uncle, save up money and get a car, and then drive to California, you know. And I
And now this
I
was
did.
close to Vietnam. Vietnam was going on at that time.
Well, I actually, yeah, Vietnam was going on. I mean, I was drafted,
Mhm.
but I also had a deferment.
Mhm.
So I was able to avoid, because I was still in school. And by the time school finished at this point, then everything had kind of been winding down and there was no more draft. There was no more need for the draft. So
Mhm.
that all kind of ended. So I kind of dodged that bullet, And then I moved in with my aunt and uncle and got a job in a hospital. And I was a surgical tech.
How was that experience?
It was really kind of fun. I had a really good time. I wasn't a surgical tech, I should say. I worked in the surgical suite. I started as an orderly, and then they kind of put me into the, and this is so dated because they don't do any of this stuff anymore, but I guess they would have called me a surgical tech. In other words, I worked in the operating theaters, but I sterilized all the equipment. And so we would sterilize the thermometers, we would sterilize all of the stuff that the doctors would use. We put them in big sterilizing machines. And then if they needed something like DW40, which is water, or lactose, that kind of stuff, they would order it from us, and we would supply the rest of the hospital. So I was able to kind of see operations that went on. It was quite interesting.
What was the most exciting experience that you saw in that hospital?
I went to a birth, but it was a C-section, a cesarean section.
Mhm.
So I kind of wanted to see that because the maternity ward was on a different level. So the babies that were born in a natural manner were done in a different set of operating rooms. The C-sections, where they actually cut the woman open and take the baby out because there's some kind of a problem, were done in our section. So I had said to the head nurse, I said, the next time there's a C-section, I'd really love to see that. Let me know. And so she called me one morning on my day off at like 6 o'clock in the morning and said, we're doing a C-section. If you want to see it, come on down. So I dropped everything, got up, got into my VW bug, drove over to the hospital and got gowned up and went into the C-section, because it's cesarean section is very complicated because there's a doctor for the patient, the mother, there's a doctor for the baby, and there are nurses for both the doctor and the baby, plus the anesthesiologist and all of the attendants. And so that's a crowded room.
Mhm.
And I had to stand back in the corner. So got my mask on and I'm tired and a little rushed and I'm breathing heavily and I fainted.
Oh no.
And then they had to get a third doctor.
Yeah, no, they just, all of a sudden, my friend, the head nurse, she says, I think he's gonna pass out. So they put me on a gurney and wheeled me out. That was so amazing. Yeah, I did get to see a little bit of it, So that but surgery, is you don't think, people go, oh my God, all that blood and everything. You don't see a lot of that. The way everything is done or was done back then, very carefully draped, and the body is really covered, and it's all very neat. But very, very interesting. Yeah. And I met some really nice people too. Some very nice people.
Now, was it because you fainted that you didn't go into healthcare, or was that something that you
No,
were?
just it wasn't something that I didn't want to go back to school and become an
Mm,
anesthesiologist, which I thought of at the time, or a nurse. My aunts were all nurses,
mhm,
but yeah, I just decided, I thought, oh, I'll go because I still had this retail experience. I thought, oh, maybe I'll be a buyer.
mhm.
And I missed home. I missed New York. So I did. I went back home in my little VW bug that I bought, and I didn't go to California, and I went back to New York. I got a job. My first job in New York while I was living at home was a buying office called Hartfield Zodies. Hartfield Zodies was a big Kmart type chain in Southern California, and I worked in the buying department. So we would get um, such a strange job. We would get I bought I just it was a distributorship. So they distributed the merchandise to the 200 or 300 stores that they had in the Southern California market. And we would get a bundle of something like a robe wrapped with paper that told us how many units of this item they had bought, and we had to look at the sales reports for all of the stores and decide what stores were selling it the best and how much we should ship to that particular store as a stock fill-in. It was a terrible job. Hated it.
I
And I
have to
was
ask
living at
you,
home.
since you were there in the 70s, did you ever go to Studio 54?
No, that came much later.
Oh, okay. All right.
And I refused to go to Studio 54, and I could have very easily, because I knew people that knew people that knew people,
Mhm.
and I could have gone in. But at the time, I said, I am not going to a nightclub where they judge you on how you look. I was very
Mhm.
insecure. So I wasn't going to take my shirt off to get into the club.
Mhm.
And I could have, because like I said, I knew people who knew people who knew people, and we could have gone in,
Mhm.
but that's another story for another day. Anyway, so that's where we are. Oh, then I worked for Bloomingdale's. I got a new job at Bloomingdale's, and I worked in accounts payable. No, I worked in accounts receivable. Or did I work in accounts payable? No, I worked in accounts payable. So what we did and it was a very kind of an interesting job. I worked in an office, and we would have to research all of the discrepancies that came in. In other words, the buyers would submit, oh, we didn't get this, or there's a problem with this invoice or this bill. And so we would have to research it, and we would have to look up all this stuff on microfiches. They had
Oh yeah.
microfiches, yeah. And we would have to find the discrepancy and reconcile it. And I was low man on the totem pole. So I used to go to the Bloomingdale's warehouse in Long Island City, and they would store all of the paper invoices, and I would have to go through all of these boxes and search for the original paperwork
Mm.
by looking at the numbers and the details and all of that. It was an amazing job. I didn't do that for very long.
So how long were you there, and then when did you move to California?
Oh my God. So Mio and I moved to California.
Okay, let's backtrack because we haven't heard about Mio yet.
Oh, well, yeah, it comes later.
So how did you meet Mio, and who is she? For those
Okay,
listening and watching.
oh, all right. So Mio is my wife, Mio Endo LeFever. She's Japanese American from Seattle. We met in the I think it's like 73 or something like that. We got married in 78. So we've been married since 1978. And after Bloomingdale's, I had a friend from college who was in my department. She had a job in what's called the wholesale gift market. So those are showrooms that in the old days, I don't know if they still do it now, they were manufacturers' reps. In other words, they repped all of these different lines of gifts, things like, well, everything that you see in a store has a representative, right?
Mm-hmm.
They do the trade shows, they set up the trade booths, and you go around and the buyers come along and see what you have and place orders and things like that. So she worked there. She got me a job. And Mio, who is a graphic designer and worked for a lot of very famous New York magazines, she knew somebody and was friends with somebody who had one of the lines that we represented. And she did the catalogs for this manufacturer's rep. And that's how we met. Sometime around 73 or 4, something like that.
Was it love at first sight?
Not quite, but pretty much. I mean, I was still gay, but yeah, I mean, yeah, we hit it off quite a instantaneously, so to speak. Enough so that we're still here.
Yeah, you've been together for 44 years.
44 years. 1978 is when we got married. Yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff happened in between that and that, but yeah, that's because I had moved to California by that time too. So we carried on a long distance relationship until her mother got sick, and she moved back from New York to take care of her, and I moved from San Francisco up to Seattle. And we decided that I said, I don't want to come up as your friend. So we made it more formal. And then we got married one weekend.
Where did you get married?
We got married at a friend's house on Mercer Island.
Okay.
On a Sunday afternoon. Everybody pulled it all together. Her mother was terminally ill. And so we kind of did this to make her feel comfortable, because Mia was an only child and her mother was worried about her and everything. So we decided we'd get married. Mio and her mother were Buddhists, but we couldn't have the wedding in her hospital room because Buddhist ceremonies require incense, which is fire, and her mother was on oxygen.
Not the best mixture.
So we had to get married at a friend's house on Mercer Island. So our friends all pulled together and they got us a minister who would perform the ceremony, because that's not an easy thing to do. Normally you have a period of getting to know you and waiting, and we had a weekend. So we got a license, and our friend Tama, she had a minister who was willing to do that, perform the ceremony, Reverend Snook. And so we all gathered in her living room and had this religious ceremony, Wow. It was nice. Yeah, and then we
That's a beautiful island, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it is. Mercer Island. She had a cute little house there, and that we weren't living there at the time. I wasn't anyway. That happened later. I was still living in San Francisco. So we spent the night on the floor of the living room after the wedding. We never had a honeymoon. So anyway, that was the story. It was nice. I've come across pictures, and I've got movies, but I don't know if I could ever get them transferred into a digital format.
Do you still have the reel to reel? Yeah, you should transfer them before they deteriorate.
I think after 40 or 44 years, it might have deteriorated.
Yeah, I mean, you might want to check that, you know, they might be still viable.
I like to think they are.
Mhm.
I've come across pictures, but I only have, several shoe boxes full of pictures.
Right, right. So Shane, tell us about, do you have some memories, like fond memories you have of Kleon?
No,
Bitch.
no, I don't.
Nice.
Next question.
Come on, you didn't have a good time in Monterey?
Yeah, that was recent. And I'm so
Yeah, that was-
sorry. You're going to go see some comedy, and then COVID happened, and that was the end of that.
Mm,
But they were
Yeah.
front row seats.
I
Yeah,
know.
yeah, Tig Notaro in Monterey.
Tig Notaro, yeah.
Yeah.
And then was it the year before or 2 years before we went up to Eureka?
Yeah, I think Eureka would have been 20. I think Eureka was 2018. Yeah, I think Eureka was 2018. Yeah, I'm, one of the things that Kleon and I enjoyed doing back when I was still living with well, actually, I lived in those two houses in Oakland with Matt and Darren that we talked about from 1990 until I think it's been about a year and a half in each one. So 91, 92, 93 or so. And then the three of us parted and each got our own places. And I ended up in another studio apartment in the Berkeley Hills, this time way at the very top of the Berkeley Hills. I had $1 million view of the bay. But it was a shoebox. It was really tiny, but it was neat. It was a beautiful little place. There was a night when I used to go into the city and I'd meet Kleon after he got off work, and we would go out to the bars, to the clubs, right? And one night we went to this South of Market club. It was a gay dance club. And I think it might have been called the Palladium. Maybe not.
Is it still there?
Oh, well, who knows? I mean,
none of that stuff it's all changed and different.
Yeah. But anyway, this was one of these big warehouse-like places, and it had 2 stories, and multiple dance floors and guys dancing in cages that were suspended over the dance floor, and it was very, very loud. And I remember Kleon and I think we were on a balcony and we were having drinks, and he was saying something to me and I'm going, what? And then he leans in and he's shouting something at me and I'm going, what? And then finally he goes, come on. And so he dragged me out of this club, and we went a few blocks away to Harrison and 6th Street. Between Folsom and Harrison on 6th Street was a gay bar called the Rawhide. And it was
7th Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And
I think I remember that now.
Yeah, between 6th and 7th on it was 7th Street between Folsom and Harrison. Anyway, so I had never been to this place, and I'd never been to a country western gay bar where you've got guys and gals and folks wearing cowboy boots and hats and Western shirts, and they're two-stepping. They're
Mhm.
dancing arm in
Li-
arm.
Line dancing, right?
Well,
No.
well, they did
Well, that
line
comes
dancing
later.
there.
Okay.
Yeah, but two-stepping is just regular couples
It's a
ballroom
dance.
type dancing.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
It's a dance
Two-
step. Yeah.
Yeah, two-step, and then sometimes they'd do a waltz or I forget the other one that they did. Not a polka, but it was another step, but the main one was the two-step. And I was just kind of enchanted by the whole thing. It was there was music, but it wasn't, busting our eardrums. We could hear each other talk. And
So different
I don't
atmosphere.
know. Yeah. Just and it was one that I just immediately fell in love with. And I'd grown up with a fair amount of country music, so a lot of it was familiar, and then of course there was the dancing, and I don't remember, probably Kleon, you and I'd never two-stepped, so you probably taught me how to do that. I don't remember that part.
Well, it depends on what time of the night that you go there, because when you go there early in the evening, they teach you the two-step.
Well, yeah.
But if we went later,
after,
I may have had to teach you.
well, I mean, if there was any dancing that first night, it was probably very awkward, and because I wasn't a natural at that kind of thing. But we started going back regularly, and on Wednesday nights I would go. I'd get in my car and go. Wednesday night I'd go across the bridge, because Wednesday night they would have line dance lessons.
Line dances.
Right.
Yeah.
We'd learn the line dances to the popular tunes of the day.
Yeah.
And then I would usually, for at least a year or more, I would go sometimes on Friday and Saturday night. Sometimes I was there 3 nights a week. So, Kleon and I got to know the guys and gals that were regulars there.
Mhm.
And one of the other things I really liked about two-step dancing is that, this was at a time when going into a dark bar or nightclub was really challenging for me, because I couldn't see in the dark.
Mhm.
But the way this place was laid out and the way it was lit, it wasn't too tough for me to negotiate. The only thing I couldn't do is I couldn't lead. I couldn't ask anybody to dance. I had to rely on them asking me to dance, and then I'd ask them to lead. I'd say, I can't lead. I can't see in the dark. I'll bump into people.
Mhm.
So that was the nice thing, is when someone was leading, I could relax and just dance and enjoy the experience and not worry about bumping into people, So I just liked the whole thing. And Clint and I went regularly for at least a year, maybe a couple years.
Longer than that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you tried it since, now that you've lost more of your eyesight?
Oh, well, as far
Rawhide's
as,
no longer there.
no, I mean,
We did go in Sacramento though.
yeah,
But I was
up
afraid to
until,
dance.
yeah. And
You wanted to go that night.
Sacramento had a Saturday night at one of the clubs. They had a country western, a 2-hour country western dance
Period.
thing, like from 7 to 10, I think it was, before the bar really got busy.
Mhm.
And we did that once, and then I went back a couple times myself.
Now, is that during that period? Is that when you learned to do the lasso?
Oh, well,
Because there's that great photo that Mom used to have in Los Gatos. Do you remember? It was on the book, on top of the bookshelf of you,
right.
and it was like midair. It was like a great photo. Was that during that period?
That I don't know about.
No, the way that came about is when I was going to college at UC Davis, this was back in the late 80s. So this would have been a few years before this period we're talking about now. We're talking about 1993, 1994, right in there. But when I was at UC Davis, probably back in like 1988, 89, I had a friend, and he had a family in Dixon, nearby Davis. And he had a couple of cousins, a couple of boys. And one of the boys, he was probably, I don't know, he was probably, he's 20, 21. Anyway, he had just come back from working on a ranch in Wyoming or Montana. And he had a lasso, and he had a plastic steer's head in the backyard that he used to practice roping, right? And he showed me how to hold the rope and how to twirl it and how to toss it. And I thought that was really cool. So I went out and bought my own lasso, and I used to practice roping.
Who took that photo though?
Probably my friend Damon. It was at his cousin's backyard, so he probably took it.
Yeah, it's a great photo.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, it was at one of those parties that we had, one of our big parties up at the house at the top of the Oakland Hills. One night, I got my lasso out, and I twirled it and tossed it all the way across the living room to the dining room, and I roped a coworker of mine, and I reeled her in. She's screaming, and I reeled her in. She was, since she was just standing there with her cocktail talking, and suddenly she's lassoed and snug tight around her waist, and I'm reeling her in, and everybody's applauding and cheering. I don't think Kleon was at that party.
I wasn't at that party. I'm surprised it was a girl that you roped.
Well, my aim may not have been spot on that
So
time.
let's go back to the Rawhide, and let me tell you the truth about the Rawhide. So Shane never had to lead at the Rawhide, because Shane would stand there and the guys would come up and say, want to dance? And Shane would turn to me, and I would have to say okay or no, depending on how they looked. You remember that?
Well, I think
so. You vetted for him.
I screened all of his potential dance partners.
Well, I hope we were a little more subtle about it than that.
Well, we were. You'd say, "Is he okay?" And I'd say, "Yeah."
Yeah, but what I think was that sometimes you just let me go off with any old troll.
No, that's not true.
Just because it amused you to see me being taken in that way.
No, I was very, very kind to you.
Yeah, but boy, we sure
I don't
had a
know
lot of
if
fun.
we should. Yeah. I remember all sorts of stories now about the night. You would stay with us, right? When you
sometimes, if it was on a weekend, I would spend the night.
You would spend the night, but then some of the times you wouldn't spend the night.
Well, not at your place, right?
Yeah, like in
Right.
a car down the street.
Oh. I'm sure that never happened.
So share one of your fond memories, Kleon, of Shane, like something that that you think of often.
Oh my God. Oh, that's really tough. There's been so many. I don't know.
It was
I think
just any period where he didn't have a beard, probably.
no. Gosh, I don't know. I can't think of one single thing. I mean, we had such a good time dancing. It was, the line dancing part was very difficult, to be honest.
Mhm.
But he did give it his all. But
Did
it
they
was
ever do it to Elvira? Did you
Pardon?
ever line dance to the song Elvira?
I don't think so.
I don't remember Elvira, but I remember a lot of the dances, the tush push,
Yeah.
the
Do you ever well, no, you don't, but I'm on TikTok a lot,
Mhm.
yeah.
and TikTok has a lot of line dancing TikToks.
Oh,
Mhm.
sure. That
They
makes
are
sense.
not the same. I'll tell you, at least the ones I've seen, they're not the same. Yeah, they don't have those dances that we did. And I always thought those dances were, kind of neat. But the ones they're doing now, of course, it is 20 years or 30 years later. They're kind of
Well, and
sloppy.
well, and country music has changed.
Yeah.
A lot of the country music that's been put out in the last 5 or more years, you can't dance to it. It's kind of a country rock hip hop fusion.
Yeah, it's not KT
And
Oslin.
no, it is not. And you can't dance to it. In fact, when they were doing the dance night in Sacramento, in the guy that facilitated it used to say, we can't play every song that you guys request, because a lot of these new songs, you can't dance to them.
Mhm.
They don't have that
And
two-step rhythm.
and they were asking for that.
Right. The younger
Yeah.
people were asking for more contemporary
Yeah.
country songs, not realizing that you can't dance to them.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's a shame. They still have a very active country western scene in the city, but it's not in the city. It's out it's further away. I don't know. I've never gone, but I've heard about it.
Is it like up in Guerneville, or where is it?
No. I mean, it when I say it's not in the city, it's in the city limits. It's just not close.
Oh, we need to go and check that out sometime.
It's only on Sundays.
Oh, I'd come down for that.
Yeah, I know, but I work Sundays.
Oh, well, I'll still come down. I'm sure I'll still get invitations to dance.
Oh, I'm sure you will, even with your beard.
Yeah, the Snow White
Maybe
beard,
even more so. I don't know.
Yeah, this Snow White beard and a jet black Stetson. Yeah.
I tried on my cowboy boots the other day. They still fit.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know if I could ever wear them to work. I don't know what to do with them. I got rid of the hat a long time ago. It was just way too much.
It's amazing. How long have you been in San Francisco?
We moved here in the mid 80s.
So you've seen a lot of changes.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's changed a lot.
The changes, not always for the better, but
Mhm.
I don't knock it because it's still beautiful.
Mhm.
I mean, there's the Castro is just full of unfortunate people.
Mhm.
It's just, I mean, I work in a store that's an institution in the Castro. It's been there 86 years, for God's sakes, but it's, the stuff you have to deal with, it's just kind of amazing. Sad in a way.
Mhm.
But then again, I think of all the people that are just now moving into the city, or whatever. It's all new to them, and they don't know anything else.
Yeah.
So I don't compare the two looks, before and after kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, San Francisco, when I first moved here, was the days of oh, crap, Armstead Mopan, Tales of the City.
Mhm.
You know, when
Mhm.
Tales of the City was being serialized in the Chronicle every Friday, that's when I lived here. I moved here in 1976,
Mhm.
but I didn't stay here. I lived here until 78. And then I moved to Seattle and got married. But yeah, it was a special city. It still is a special city. It's just, it's just not the same city.
Yeah.
And so you can't really knock it for that not being the same. I mean,
And
I love the neighborhood we live in. That's the same.
What was that restaurant? Was it Ella's?
Yeah,
It was like the breakfast place that we had breakfast at one time.
yeah, not
Yeah.
anymore.
Oh, it's gone.
Yeah, they closed. Yeah, a lot of
Kleon,
places.
you were gonna talk a little bit more about where you work,
Cliffs.
right?
Is it?
So Cliffs is a hardware variety store. It's called Cliffs Variety. If you ever watch MSNBC, they do a lot of advertising on MSNBC.
Mhm.
So one half of it, well, not one half, but the main, what we call the main store is Ace Hardware is our largest supplier. So they supply us with all of the hardware type of merchandise, nuts and bolts and screws and electrical tools and things like that. But we also sell toys, small section of stationery, children's crafts and costumes. We have a large collection of Le Creuset dinnerware, Wusthof knives, housewares, pots and pans and dishes, implements, Bodum, the coffee makers.
Mhm.
Then we also do a large collection of light bulbs and electrical lamps. Then we have a huge paint department, ladders.
How large is this store?
It's fairly large. I don't know. I don't know very much about spatial things. I can't tell you. It's
Mhm.
like 2 storefronts.
Mhm.
I work right now, or have been for the last 6 months. I work next door in the annex. So the annex is, how we say it at work is, the main store is everything you need, light bulbs, nuts and bolts and screws and chain and all sorts of things, gardening supplies, all of that's in the main store. In the annex is all the fun stuff, the things you don't need, gifts, bath towels, fabric, notions, jewelry, wigs, platform shoes. We supply the drag queens of the Castro
Hmm.
with makeup and everything else, gift cards, stationery, all that kind of fun stuff. That's in the annex.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like 2 little stores next to each other, but they've been there 86 years, run by the same family.
Really? Wow, that's
Mhm.
amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Started by the great grandfather of the current owners, and it's a mother and daughter.
Mhm.
Well, that's
Wow.
because the husband died 3 years ago,
Mhm.
whom I met at I actually sold him a leather jacket at Nordstrom, Ernie Aston. Now I work for his wife and daughter.
Is that how you got the job?
No,
Oh,
no,
okay.
no. After Gums closed, I knew I would have to keep working, so I there was an ad in the paper, and I applied, and she called me in that afternoon. Hired me that afternoon, practically.
Now,
So
Gumps was
3 years ago.
Now Gumps was a very famous store as well.
Gumps was a very famous store. Yeah, I've only worked for famous stores: Crate and
Hmm.
Barrel, Nordstrom, Bloomingdale's.
But Gumps, I mean, how long had that been open? Because it recently closed as well, right?
Gumps was, and I forget all my details, 150 some years, I believe. It
Because a
started
friend
in
of
the 1800s.
because a friend of mine, her grandfather bought jade for Gumps like many, many, many years ago.
You mean bought jade or was a supplier?
Well, went overseas to select
Oh,
jade
he
and
was
bring
a
it back to
supplier?
Gumps.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they were known for their jade
yeah.
collection. They had a room of jade. Not when I was there. That was the old store. So the original store, um, before the earthquake of 1906, was on. No, I take that back. After 1906, the store was located at 250 Post. Then after 1989 earthquake, the building had structural damage, and the family couldn't come to terms with whoever owned the building, and so they ended up moving down to getting my addresses mixed up. 250 versus 180, I think, or something like that. Anyway, they moved down the street, and it was rechristened, and that was in the late 80s. And that's where I worked. And, you know, it had been there until 2019 or 2018, I think is when it closed. And now they have reopened. And they've reopened a smaller store in the original location at 250 Post. So they're still there.
No
But
kidding. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's not the same thing, but it's, you know, the guy who put it together was a former board member, and he bought the rights, the internet intellectual rights, the name. They
The
bought
intellectual property rights.
yeah, they bought that, and so he was able to reopen the store, and they have a beautiful catalog and everything. So they're still in business, and it was going to be just kind of temporary, but I think they actually decided to make it a full-time venture. But San Francisco downtown is not the San Francisco downtown that you and I know. Because of the pandemic, it's just not the same kettle of fish. The Crate and Barrel closed, the one that was downtown that I opened in 2003, that's gone. So there are a lot of stores that are just not there anymore.
You mentioned the earthquake. Let's talk about the Loma Prieta earthquake in 1980. Was it 89?
89 on your birthday, right?
That's right. October 17th, 1989.
That's
Now,
how
where
I
were you,
remember.
Kleon?
5:08 p.m.
I was in Santa Rosa.
Oh, all right.
Don't tell Mio. She still hates that. Yeah, I was doing a special oh God, what do you call it?
Promotion.
I was out of town doing a seminar. And when it happened, and Mia was by herself at home. She's never forgiven me for that, because I had the flashlight and we only had one.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Did
Yeah,
she? I mean, she obviously did all right, but was
oh
she?
yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was bad.
Mm.
It was bad for our apartment, actually, because when we lived on 22nd at the time, and unfortunately on our side of the street, it was under a buried stream bed, so the earth was not firm, shall we say. We had a lot of damage. whereas the people behind us and the people on the other side had nothing.
Mhm.
They were on bedrock, but we were not. So, I mean, it wasn't, catastrophic, but we lost a lot of stuff.
Oh,
you know.
no.
Yeah, that was a long time ago,
Wow.
1989.
And where were you, Shane?
I was across the bay at Macy's Hilltop. I was the manager of women's accessories, costume bridge jewelry, and I was on a ladder in the stockroom stacking this tower of
Are you kidding
cases. No, I'm not. I was on a ladder at the top of a ladder. I was stacking in a corner box after box after box of dozen quantity deer foam Christmas slippers. And and everything started
me?
to
Thank God they
shake.
were slippers.
Yeah, deer foam Christmas slippers. And I think I was about halfway up the ladder, and I tossed the box and I jumped down, and I remember I swung the door of the stockroom open and everything was moving, and I remember I looked down and I saw there was this white tile, these square tiles in the walkway, and I saw one of the tiles crack in the middle and pop up in the two pieces, and then the lights went out, every light in the store. And as it happened, speaking of flashlights, right inside that stockroom door that I was standing in was a bank of flashlights, probably a dozen or more flashlights on a rack. And so I grabbed them and I started distributing them to staff out on the sales floor. It was pretty wild.
All that work ruined all those Christmas slippers.
Yeah, all those. Yeah, my tower of deer foam Christmas slippers tumbled down. Yeah. And and I remember the other manager, the dress department was right outside my stockroom door, and the other manager had a desk in the stockroom like I did, and she had a apartment in the marina, and she lost everything in the fire that burned there after the quake.
That's horrible.
What department was she in?
She managed the dress department, women's dresses.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the aftermath made it. The aftermath was worse than the actual earthquake, because business was just in the pits right after that, because the press made it sound like San Francisco was flattened. That was the whole story and everything, and nobody came to San Francisco. And really, yeah, there were some problem areas like the marina area and the roadway in Oakland and the Bay Bridge were all problems, but most of the city was unscathed. Didn't have a problem with other than some minor damage. I don't think there was. We've talked about this at the store, and I don't think the store in the Castro Cliffs didn't lose a thing. And we have glassware and things like that. Nordstrom didn't lose a thing. But the press made it sound like San Francisco was rubble.
Well,
that kept people away.
I remember watching there was an A's game on. I think was it the World Series?
It was the Bay Bridge World Series, the Giants and the A's.
Yeah,
I remember watching
and
that.
they were just
in
getting
San Francisco.
In fact, mom was remarried and back in upstate New York, and she and her husband and some friends were watching the World Series live, I think they had just sung the national anthem and were getting ready to throw out the first pitch when the earthquake happened, so
I remember we
mo-
couldn't get a hold of you. That's what we were so worried because we couldn't reach you.
well, yeah, this was before mobile phones,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. But
I mean,
I don't think it was. I think it was later in the game. I don't think it was the beginning of the game.
well, it might have been. I don't remember that part. Like I said, it was about 8 minutes after 5 o'clock, and I think it was pretty near. I mean, I don't think they would have been playing it any earlier than 5.
The Giants were ahead.
Okay, well, I'm gonna have to look this up after this
I don't know.
call. Yeah, I don't think that's
no
right.
idea.
But
We can have
I
a part two.
The Giants didn't win, by the way. They didn't win the series.
Well, the other thing is that the Bay Bridge,
Collapsed.
well, yeah, that upper deck collapsed onto the lower deck, and the Bay Bridge was closed for I don't remember how long. But I remember 3 days later, my friend Sabina and Sabina was going to college and living in the city at the time. We had tickets to see the opera, and I think they canceled it. Yeah, because we never went. I mean, we went at a later date, but we did not go to the performance we were scheduled to see.
Yeah, I'm sure they
Yeah.
canceled that part of it anyway.
Yeah.
So Kleon, what's next? What's the next chapter?
There is no next chapter. What are you talking about? This is the finale. Yeah, I don't know. There is no next chapter. One day at a time.
Well,
You
I'll
know?
tell you, you have great taste in food. I actually, my wife and I had in 2019, we had to go to the city to meet my mentor and friend Gustavo
I'm so
Esteva.
sorry that your wife isn't feeling well. I was really kind of looking forward to meeting her.
I wanted you to meet her as well. She spent a lot of time in San Francisco and Oakland. That's why she lived there for a long time. So I wanted to, I thought you would have a lot to discuss, and but we're gonna actually be in the city probably I think March 29th.
No, not March.
Or no, I'm sorry, not March. I mean May 29th.
Oh, is that like Memorial Day?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean,
Just
I don't
before
know
it?
the exact date, but we're supposed to go to a wedding. What happened was we got the invitation, like she didn't get the invitation, and then the bride called and was like, "Are you going to be there?" And she's like, "I didn't get it." And then so I
That's
guess we're going.
unfortunate.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well,
But,
we should do this again.
Yeah, we
Not-
should.
Not formal, just informal. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be posted on YouTube or anything.
All my conversations are on YouTube, so
Oh, they are?
no,
Oh,
no.
wow. I mean,
But
so I have a question to ask you.
sure.
You said you have a son. Is this your stepson?
Yes.
What's his name?
His name is I actually try to keep it off YouTube,
Oh, I'm sorry.
but we call him Weeby.
Okay.
Yeah. But I will tell you
Where did you get that?
after we stop recording.
Where did I get that information from?
Probably Shane.
Oh, no. From Facebook, I think.
Yeah.
I think I was reading something on Facebook that you had posted.
Yeah. He's very funny, and he's he makes me laugh. He just turned 7.
Oh, he's young.
Yeah. He's very funny. He's got a great sense of humor. And
how's your mom?
She's doing all right. She just had hip surgery.
Oh, really?
Yeah. She had hip surgery, and
She's
she's now like 10 months or not 10 months, 10 weeks in recovery. and she's doing very well. She's going to have cataract surgery soon, so she'll be able to see
Oh,
better. But
that makes
she,
a big difference. Let me tell you, I'm not wearing glasses anymore because
Mhm.
I had mine.
Did you have them both done at the same time or
I
one at a
did
time?
have them both done at the same time.
See,
Yeah.
I've been trying to tell her to get, because now she's doing this one at a time thing, and I'm like, why would you do that? I
Why
know
would
that
you
they,
do that? They can do it all at once. It makes a big difference.
yeah, yeah. So I
Yeah.
don't know why they're doing one at a time. So she's going to do
Mine,
one next week and then 2 weeks later. So I'm like, that seems like aggravating to do.
yeah,
To
yeah.
accuse her,
I mean,
but
you don't do anything. I mean, I didn't do anything at all. I didn't have to
mm,
wear patches or do
yeah,
anything at all. It's just amazing.
yeah. I'm gonna talk to her about it and say, hey, can you push for the double, rather than, because it's just an added stress of having to wait and then do it again.
Yeah, I would think so. And I think when you do both of them at the same time, it's like, oh, wow, amazing,
Right.
you can see right away.
Yeah, I know, and I think she'll
I mean,
fun.
I've been wearing glasses since I was in the second grade,
Mhm.
and I haven't worn glasses. Now, albeit I probably need to have my eyes checked again because things aren't as easy to see as they were when I first had it done. But it's not critical. It's
Mm.
not like something you know, I can still read and do it, whatever I do without having to wear glasses. And I'm still constantly going like this,
Mm.
trying to take them off or put them on in the morning.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's amazing. Yeah.
So I usually end, Shane, by the way, if you did you have anything you wanted to mention or ask of Cleon before we wrap it up?
No, not at the
Oh,
moment. Oh, Cleon's got another query.
whatever it is, no.
Oh, okay. No. No, I just it's been fun to learn some new things about my old friend, and also share
You-
some memories of the good times that we had together. There
Good
were a lot
times.
of them. We really barely scratched the surface,
Oh, I know.
especially given this G-rated version.
Yeah, I
Uh,
can tell you stories.
It could have been
uh,
X-rated. There's no problem with it, but
well,
whatever you're comfortable with.
when it's out there for just anybody to peruse, yeah, that makes a difference as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, it's been good, Brian.
You-
Thank you for inviting us both
Yeah,
on.
this has been fun.
Yeah, Cleon, I once again, I think about it a lot. You're aware of this, Shane, that Cleon allowed me to stay with him and Mio when I was auditioning for Juilliard and CalArts, and I always appreciated that, and I've always been grateful for your hospitality and kindness. That meant a lot to me, because that was that was an important
I'm sure
life-changing
it was pretty
period.
stressful too for you at the time.
I'm sorry, what?
Pretty stressful for you at the
Yeah,
time.
yeah, it
Well, I
was.
mean, so if we were able to make it more comfortable, at
Oh
least.
yeah, absolutely. It was really a relief to have that space, and I thank you for that.
Yeah, anytime.
Yeah, and
Well,
please tell Mio thank you as well.
unfortunately, we don't have that space anymore. Our the landowner, the landlord of the building is Mio's one of her oldest friends that she
Mhm.
went to high school with. And when Mio and they were in desktop publishing together, when they closed the business down, she turned the downstairs unit into a mother-in-law.
Mm,
So it's now rented out to somebody,
I see.
which
So
has
what did
been
they just did they put a lock on that door that goes downstairs?
You
No, they
mean the
closed the
stairwell? They
stairs.
closed the
They
stairwell
they
off. They took the
put a
stairwell
floor
out.
over it.
Oh, all right, all right.
Yeah. It's now where Shane stays when he comes.
I see.
Although that hasn't been for a while, right?
Well, now-
Yeah, it's been a couple years.
Well, now you got to go to that new club. To do
I
some
would
line
love
dancing.
to. I would
Rawhide?
love to go
No, I think
two-stepping
it's
again.
called Sundance, something like Sundance, something like that. I bet if you Googled it, you could find it. It's
I'm going to, because I
Sunday
would
Sundance
enjoy.
or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would love to go.
I have
two-stepping
another
again.
I have another friend that loves that kind of stuff. I didn't know that about him, but we've talked about it. And he loves to line dance, or two-step, I should say, not necessarily line dance. Because all the line dances are going to be new and we're not going to know how to do them.
No, I don't even think I could do the tush push anymore.
Oh God, I don't think they do the tush push. Although they do the Cotton Eye Joe. I have seen that. But
The electric slide.
yes. And I have a whole list of the line dances that we used to do. But God knows it, that was so much fun. And it was, I love those memories of that. I'm twirling you around on the floor. I had to learn how to lead.
How did he lead, Shane?
Well, he did a great job. He was a good dancer.
He didn't,
I mean,
he didn't throw you into another couple?
No, nothing like that.
Okay.
Nothing like that. But yeah, those were fun times at the Rawhide.
And there was something rather, if I can say it, erotic about two guys dancing together like that. I loved it when I first discovered it.
Yeah, it was.
I was not suggestive or anything, but it was just fun.
Yes, it was. It was fun. It was freeing. It was comfortable. Yeah, I mean, it was good, clean fun, basically.
Yeah.
Except for all the drinking and smoking that went along with it.
So what I've been asking my guest, and I would like to ask you, Shane, because I don't think I was doing this when we had our last conversation, is I asked two questions, and you don't have to answer them, or you can choose to answer one or the other, or neither. That's up to you. But I'll start with you, Kleon. So if you could talk to everyone on Earth in their own language at the same time, simultaneously, what would you say to them?
I would probably say peace and happiness.
Thank you. What would be written on what would your epitaph say?
Robot collector.
We didn't even get it. You have robots. We didn't even talk about that.
Yes,
oh my God,
hundreds
robots.
and hundreds of robots.
All right, let me just ask you, what's with the robots? Why do you have robots?
It just happened when Mio and I got married, and all of our little, all of Mio's friends, children, had all these fabulous Japanese robots, which were just amazing, I thought. And I'm a collector junkie. Robots is not the only thing I collect. If I see two of one thing, then I'm going to buy both of them and get some more. You should see my Pez collection. Yeah. So I just started. I have multiple chairs, miniature chairs all over the place, and robots, and I have a collection of dolls that Shane doesn't even know about.
I wonder if Shane, if he has the one that looks like George's mother.
Right, the Estelle doll.
The Estelle doll sounds
George.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a Seinfeld episode with a doll that looked like his mother. It was very funny.
So Shane, what if you could talk to everyone on Earth simultaneously, what would you say to them?
I think I'd say get over yourselves and be kind to one another.
Thank you. What about your epitaph?
When it was all said and done, he learned absolutely nothing.
I don't believe that.
All right. Thank you so much for being my co-host, Shane Snyder.
Thank
Kleon
you for
LeFever.
the invite.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Kleon LeFever. Thank you for sharing what is alive within you. This was The Blind Men in Black. I'm your host, Brian Maxfield Snyder. Please watch on YouTube and Apple Podcast. And if you like my wife and I being exhausting, go to the Exhausting Snyders on TikTok. All right, now for our awkward ending. Here we go.
What's the awkward part?
This is it right here.
Oh.